make an announcement, then we can officially start our program.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Movenpick Hotel and Residence Nairobi. I would like to take you through the safety measures we put in place to make sure that we're safe in case we face any emergency. So in case we face any emergency, we will sound an audio. The audio will direct us the kind of emergency and what we're supposed to do. If it's fire, it's straight. We get out through the marked exits, straight to fire assembly point. From this side, our fire assembly point is at ground floor, right at the entrance on the left side when you are coming in. That's where our fire assembly is. In case it's any other emergency other than fire, our staff knows what to do to make sure that we get to a safer place till we ensure that the emergency is dealt with. In case any of us feels unwell, we have hotel nurse who's within the premise from 8 to 5 in the evening, so she will be able to handle emergency cases that are beyond first aid. And if the situation needs further attention, Bakari Hospital outpatient is right opposite building across the road. And KNCHR is less than 2 minutes drive from here. Due to the new normal, we enforce and strictly enforce the government guidelines. We are expecting each and everyone to be on masks and at the same time maintain the social distancing in case we're not on masks because of the people having a meal or a break. And sanitizing points, we have several of them along the hallway. Please let's utilize them. Washrooms are the far end. On the left side, ladies the last door, gents the second last door. Thank you so much and welcome to Movenpick Hotel and Residence Nairobi. I will invite you for any clarification if there's any. Thank you so much. Welcome and have a successful day.
Thank you very much, Movenpick, for that emergency report. Thank you. We can have that mic. The extra mic will need it here after the sanitizing. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, good morning and welcome to the launch of the detention report. It has been a long journey and we have an excited program. You know, it's going to be short and sweet. Within the next 2 hours, we'll be done. And I would like us to highlight the agenda so that at least you can be able to know what we have prepared for you. We'll start the meeting with, thank you. We start the meeting with introductions of the participants who are here this morning. And my colleague from Movenpick, as we requested, we might need another mic so that we can be able to pass it around the, yeah, thank you. And then after that, we will have opening remarks. And these opening remarks will be led by our KNCHR Director, Madam Marie, the BMM Regional Coordinator and the NCM Representative. After that, we are then going to have a discussion of the detention report. And this is going to highlight, for example, what is the background to this report, why was it done. I'm sure you have many questions like we had when we started this journey. For example, how many migrants are in detention in Kenya? And that question will be answered through the report, and other questions of their demography, who are they, what are their gender, how many female and male do we have, what are their offenses, what is the general situation, yeah? And then we'll have a discussion in terms of what does it mean in terms of the cost, you know, of maintaining the migrants in our places of detention. Then we'll have a discussion about the recommendations, and then we'll open the discussion to the plenary, where we'll give you, our audience, an opportunity to ask questions, to make comments, and also to just share your observation about the report. I would also like at this point to inform you that we are also streaming this event live, and our online audience, we welcome you, and we also invite you to provide your comments, your observations, and let us know where you are, streaming from. Is it in Kenya? Is it out of Kenya? Which offices are you representing, and what are your observations for that? So without further ado, I would like us to take the next step, and that is the introduction. How we're going to do this, you'll go table to table, say your name and the organization you're representing. Thank you. Start with this table.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Gerald from Zambia.
Good morning. My name is Diana Odani from Detention.
Good morning, my name is Captain McCoy, the Commissioner for Immigration.
Good morning. My name is Charles Owens from National Police Service. Good morning, President. My name is Shaw from the Directorate Thank you for inviting me to this.
Thank you very much and welcome.
Good morning. My name is Lawrence.
Welcome. Good morning. My name is Julie. I'm on the department. Thank you. We have media representation in the room. Do we have any other from the media? Could I please start? Okay, please. Thank you very much, and once again, welcome. Without wasting any more time, because we are behind our schedule, I would like us to go to the next session. And this is where we have the opening remarks for the event. And it is my pleasure and honor to welcome Madam Marie from the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, Director. Then she'll take us to the next session. Welcome, Madam Marie.
Madam Sike Hamson, the BMM Regional Coordinator of GIZ, Dr. Lukaka Lichetu, the representative and member of the National Coordination Mechanism, the Commissioner of Refugees, the spokesperson of the National Police Service, the various embassies represented today, the various representatives from the government agencies, and also the representatives from the development partners and our civil society partners, and the media that are also represented in this launch. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On behalf of the Commission, I wish to warmly welcome you to this important meeting where we shall be launching the report on the status of migrants in places of detention. To start us off by way of introduction to the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, is that the Commission is a national human rights institution that is established by the Constitution and by an Act of Parliament with the main mandate of promoting and protecting human rights in Kenya. We undertake this through key functions that have been bestowed by the Commission, including receiving and processing complaints on human rights issues, investigating and taking redress actions towards seeking accountability for human rights violations, monitoring, audit, research, giving key advisories to state and non-state actors on how to improve and move the country towards a human rights state. So we undertake these functions through close collaborations with key state and non-state actors. And it is on this basis that the Commission, in partnership with the GIZ, through the Better Migration Management Program, undertook a baseline survey on the status of migrants in places of detention. This survey was really necessitated by the worrying trend of immigration detention, which is really a threat to the well-being of migrants, not just within our region, but also worldwide. So it is our hope as a Commission that the findings of this study which shall be presented to you during this launch, will provide you with comprehensive data on the status of migrants in places of detention, and with key recommendations that, if implemented, will go a long way in promoting and protecting the rights of migrants in Kenya. This study will not have been possible without the kind support of the Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, BMC, co-funded by the European Union, and which we are entirely grateful and we extend our appreciation. Our appreciation also to the technical team that was in charge of the compilation of this survey report, both from GIZ and the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. And also, we do not forget our key partners, including the Kenya Prison Service, the National Police Service, the Border Post Management and children institutions all over the country. So I wish to once again thank you all for creating time, both physically and to all those who are joining us virtually from all corners of the world as we launch this important report. So I say karibuni sana, and I wish us all a fruitful launch and deliberation. At this stage, I wish to now welcome the National Coordination Mechanism representative, Dr. Lukaka Lichetu, to deliver his remarks. Thereafter, he shall welcome our BMM regional coordinator to give the remarks and officially open this launch. Karibu sana, Daktari.
Morning, everyone. I would like to take this opportunity to appreciate all the stakeholders and particularly the support that we have received from GIZ. Considering the challenge that we face today when it comes to issues of migration. Migration is actually the 21st cutting-edge issue, and we cannot avoid because it's something that is affecting our economy, politics, and international relations. However, in ensuring that there is safe and regular migration, we become all concerned, and that's why stakeholders, like the support we have received all along from BMM, is very important. Why? Because if you consider Kenya today, it is a source, it is a transit, and a destination of many migrants. Our police service are always grappling with the challenge every other day of Ethiopians coming through Kenya to South Africa and the rest of the world. What about our facilities? What about human rights? How then does this report inform our policies going forward? It is therefore timely that actually the report will help us as stakeholders using that whole of government approach to ensure that we actually streamline and address areas of concern as raised in this report. I'm glad that the report has actually captured key stakeholders, interviews across the country, matters of concern that we grapple with every day, even as reported in the media, and providing a very good entry point that these are areas that we need to correct, how to improve our facilities, how to improve interpretation in terms of language for those ones arrested and they don't have interpreters, how to address this within our criminal justice system. And therefore, it is key that the discourse that the report provides can be carried forward with different stakeholders taking on small bits that they can actually address so that we make Kenya a better country in terms of migrants, a better country in terms of those ones who are coming here, and even as those ones who transit. Remember, for us as a country today, we have so many Kenyans out there, and we have signed several bilateral agreements with different countries. Then the question is, how are we also taking care of those ones who are actually coming to our own country? Human rights is something we cannot avoid. It's actually a key thing, and I'm happy that Kenya National Human Rights Commission and the BMM have been working on this for quite a while. And of course, this again answers to a big concern as we are reporting for the Global Compact on Migration. Kenya, we are one of the countries that actually have volunteered to report on this. And this report is actually one of the inputs towards the same. I take this opportunity to thank all, and I wish you well. Thank you. I would also like to take this opportunity to invite Madam Silike to take on and share her remarks.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, valued national partners and friends, a very good morning to you all. Now today we're here to launch one of the great outcomes of the partnerships between the Better Migration Management Programme and the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. The Better Migration Management Programme, which is funded by the European Union and the German government, aims to promote the safe, regular and orderly, but importantly also the human rights-based migration, or the human rights-based approach to migration governance. And it is activities like these, our partnership with the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, where we explore challenges and look whether there are better solutions than to what is currently out there in the world. And this is what makes me really, really proud to be here today. The presentation today will take you on a journey to Wajir Prison, to Kamiti Maximum Security Prison just outside of Nairobi, and to about 60 other places of detention here in Kenya. I was privileged to join the research team on 2 of these visits, to Wajir and to Kamiti, and I must say I was also very privileged to leave at the end of the day, because by nature a prison is a fairly tough place to be. But there's some extra challenges that you face when you're a prisoner in a foreign country. There's a language barrier quite often.
you're lacking family support. You're probably also not so aware of the legal frameworks that apply in the country. There could be cultural differences and often lengthy processes to make it through the legal system. As you will hear, the report found that 1/3 of foreigners in Kenyan places of detention are there for immigration crimes. Those are irregularities with their documentation to legally stay in Kenya. Is that the best place for a foreigner to be who was found to be irregularly in Kenya? There's many countries in the world currently grappling with that question, and I don't think anyone has the specific answer on what the best way is. But I'm very proud that we're here today and that KNCHR here in Kenya is initiating the discussion on whether there are any alternatives to this system, how we should approach the challenge on what to do with foreigners who are in our country irregularly. There is obviously a cost to the state to imprison people, but there's also a huge cost to the individual. And what is the cost to the idea of Pan-Africanism? These are questions we're initiating here today. So I'm very grateful to KNCHR for initiating this discussion, to open the floor to people in this room, but also online, and to an ongoing discussion over the next coming months, to seeing whether we can find a better solution here in Kenya that we can maybe share with the world. And I'm also grateful for the National Coordination Mechanism on Migration, the NCM, and we have a few members here today, to be open to participate in that discussion. So this is not just about pointing fingers, but it is more about joining or jointly coming up with a better way of doing things, a way in which we would like to see our many Kenyan brothers and sisters who are also traveling overseas and maybe in a similar situation. And with that, I want to open the floor to the presentation and to input from everyone who's joined us here today in person or online. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Veronica Mwangi is my name. I'm a Deputy Director at the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. So allow me to delve now further into the report, which we have already on our desks. But beyond that, I will be very brief with regard to the presentation, just taking us through the details on what were the findings, who were the respondents, and what was the methodology. Looking at the presentation, I will be looking at the structure of the report, largely looking at the background of the study, the methodology, literature review, specifically to the case, why are we looking at the detention of migrants, and then followed by research findings, as well as the recommendation, which is very crucial to this process. But before I do that, allow me to ask my colleagues, IT, to help me out in the next slide, where we have a video that will just showcase to us the reality that we are dealing with and the reason as to why this study comes in a very timely manner, following the GCM conversation, Global Compact on Migration, following the Global Compact on Migration, but at the same time, the discussions we are having globally about the role of migration in sustainable development and also in the human rights discourse, among other specific topical issues. As we set up the video, I would also take the opportunity to invite our colleagues in the online platform. Feel free to pose any question. Thank you.
Our border here is porous. We get cases of immigrants. They are headed to maybe big towns like Nairobi and also beyond this country. We have been detecting them, and whenever we get to them, we arrest them. We arraign them in court. They are charged. Later, they are repatriated back to their country.
Under our Kenyan law, anyone who is unlawfully present in Kenya will be charged as being unlawfully present in Kenya. If you look at that charge, the way it is framed, it leaves very little for interpretation. You only need to prove that this person has no legal documentation, and that is that. So the penalty for being unlawfully present in Kenya is a fine of up to 500,000 or imprisonment for up to 3 years.
The core mandate of Prisons Department is rehabilitation, so that they can be reintegrated back to the society. We don't have that aspect of rehabilitating aliens.
During our interactions with them and with prisons, it has come out very clearly that the prison has no curriculum to deal with them. They are not there to be corrected, they are not there to be punished. I think it's one of those lacunas in law that we have. We never contemplated this.
محمد على القناة اللي لا سوماليان كشقيسنا دوبلان كيما waxaan u socday diif waa soo dhum waxaan soo galay xagga xuduudka Kenya soo galay Darfur meel laana laga qabtay anagoo shan qof ah Kenya sabab jiduf
It's unfortunate at times that the person who ends up in police custody so that we charge that person. It's just a victim. The person whom we should have gone for is this person bringing these people. Because we believe that there are people who are trafficking these people, and those are the ones we are looking for. Among those people who are coming also here, they're also looking for employment. We have had instances whereby the person who has employed them refuses to pay, then he calls the police. That is an alien here. It's so unfortunate.
We don't get a chance to talk to these people, right? We only meet them in court when they plead. So if you sat in court, perhaps you would see what I see and feel what I feel. I do not look at them as criminals per se. Sometimes you find the people charged are women and children. Where do you put these minors? In terms of people we send to prison, then they account for more than 70%. Because when they are arrested, they are usually arrested as a group. So you might find one file having 50 people, all being charged with being unlawfully present in Kenya.
أنا يوانا قدي سنيله إثيوبيا تايم إثيوبيا كبدين دوف أرمادن تايم سن كينيا أرمادن لالم يو أرما قالي أن له تايم سن إسا كبدين قالان هاكا نور جيا دوف اللي يدور هاكا تشدوف اللي يدور أنين قالا يو قالي أن له كاروبين قالا يو جد اللي وانا ربنا جاني نمو جد دوفا كمول.
In Wajir prison, we have 152 aliens in our prison. This is an open prison. The capacity is 200. The health is upon the government, feeding these aliens is upon the government. It comes from taxpayers' money.
Confronted with these challenges, state actors have come together and decided to confront the challenge of migrants in this county. The judiciary has used its discretion to bring down the fines, sometimes to 30, 50,000 and 30 days in prison, to bring it down as much as possible so that these people can be repatriated back to their country as soon as possible.
It wasn't serving any purpose at all to give a fine of 300,000, 400,000 and a maximum sentence of 1 year, because these guys would not pay the fine anyway. We found that actually what we thought was radical wasn't radical at all, because the other departments had also been thinking about it. Now this was being felt by the other state actors. I will pose it as questions I usually ask myself. What's the cost to the state? What's the cost to even morality?
Can we have other ways of handling aliens instead of committing them into the prison?
Is this how we would want our people to be treated if our situation got into the situation Somali is in?
Allow me to rush a bit. Thank you so much. So I think the video alone helps us to sort of appreciate the context under which the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights proceeded to have this study. One, the National Commission has been very keen to support the government of Kenya in consultation, of course, working closely with other actors with regard to supporting better migration management. A lot of it has been based on promoting what we are calling a human rights-based approach in migration governance. So I will delve into the report for us to even have a better clarity on what it means and why this study was undertaken. Just to reiterate, the study was undertaken the past 2 years across different counties, and the main reason that informed the National Commission, with the support of GIZ BMM program, to sit down and develop this concept was the following. We found that the fundamental principle of international law states clearly that no one should be subjected to arbitrary detention. Next, we also looked at the governments of different worlds. Globally, there is a tendency and a soft, or rather a silent practice that has been taken up by different member states to use detention of migrants as a measure towards addressing challenges of irregular migration. And thirdly, we also looked at the provisions we have within the UN member states in 2018, Marrakesh, and the GCM is very clear on the importance of all of us safeguarding against the unlawful use of detention, and this is clearly stipulated in Objective 13. Again, we also were informed by the understanding and the provisions of the different human rights conventions that deal with the general human rights issues, but also migration and migrants' family aspects of protection. In terms of the objective, just to indicate, we set out to assess the status of migrants in the detention and other holding facilities. That means we also went beyond our Kenya prisons, our prison facility, the Kenya prisons, our police station cells, but also we looked at the migration holding places or migration border post holding cells, and also the private and public children institutions. Again, the justification on that was the need for us to look at the gap that is always existing when we speak about the context of migrants. We seem to forget the children of the moon and the challenges they face. The next objective was the need for us to collect comprehensive data on the number, distribution, as well as the key challenges facing migrants in all these facilities that we targeted as respondents. And thirdly, the objective was to document human rights concerns and the various violations that arise for migrants in detention places, as well as the violations that occur in the entire access to justice handling process, and also the repatriation of the migrants. And fourthly, the objective again was to approximate and also help us come up with an estimate of what is the cost of handling migrants who are put in the detention places. What is the cost to the state? What is the cost to all these other duty bearers? We needed to understand that, and that was the fourth objective there. In terms of the methodology, the study did adopt both quantitative and qualitative methodologies. Beyond that, the intention was not only to understand the distribution and the population of the migrants, we also sought, as alluded earlier in the objective, to appreciate what were the different types or various types of human rights violations that the migrants faced. We also wanted to check and identify what challenges, but also document the different experiences for us then to appreciate what are the different stories and the perspectives of both the migrants, who are then supposed to be the people who are going through the process, but also the duty bearers, those that hold these offices and are required to address or take or manage the migrants in their care. In terms of data collection methods, we were able, and also the tools, we were able to adopt the survey method where we set out and targeted the key informants through the different interviews that were conducted, but also in situations also we had opportunities to have few FGDs or focus group discussions. In terms of looking at the documents or the data that we had drawn from the field, we used the monkey survey software, which was very key for us in terms of analysis of that data, looking at it, the frequency, and also the percentage, and giving us the different variables. On the qualitative data, we also analyzed it, and also we were able to present this data through descriptions and quotations. With regard to the findings, allow me to delve into that. This study was undertaken in 31 counties. More details you will get in the report. And out of these 31 counties, that means we went beyond even the half. In Kenya, out of the 47 counties, we were able to cater or to visit 31 counties. So in other words, we have a bit of representative information or findings that can help inform future studies, that can also help inform the different recommendations that we have said, and giving it the feeling that this is the country's situation. So out of the 31 counties that we were able to reach out to or to visit, we were able to interview 120 law enforcement officers. And these law enforcement officers, majority of them were officers in charge of either the police station, in this regard I'm speaking about the OCSs, or the officer in charge of the prisons, of the prison stations, that is the OICs. That is to mean we were able to visit 55 prisons and also 65 national police stations. And then we were able also to speak to 130 public and private children's institutions managers. Beyond that, we were also specifically able to interview directly 246 migrants. And after that, in the phase 2, we also were able to reach out to 5 key immigration border posts. Again, in this particular category, we were able to speak specifically to the different senior officials in the immigration sector, again, to help us again appreciate what was the situation from their perspective. With that, allow me to delve further that the study found a total of 530 migrants in the 55 prisons that we were able to visit, and out of those, 88% were male and 12% were female. Again, 65% of the respondents, the migrants who we were able to interview, were from Kenya's direct neighbors. Specifically, we have Uganda, Tanzania, Somalia, and Ethiopia. The table there is very clear. The graph there has a different, it has different illustration, and the report again is very specific with the details and a lot of data on who exactly was there. In terms of looking at the offenders or the migrants who had now been put in prisons, we found that 84% were first-time offenders. Again, this is a very key aspect for criminal justice actors. I think the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution will really tell us that for first offenders, it tells us that there is an inflow of new persons coming into the criminal justice system. And hence, the need for us, we were very keen on understanding the offenders and the percentage. And again, we were able to take note that 40% of the respondents had stayed in the country for about 6 months before they were arrested. That again tells you something on our law enforcement, on the practice, and again appreciating that if the movement, if the flows are coming in and we are taking more than 6 months, then it tells us there is need for us to appreciate how do we put in structures, again, how do we address the whole aspect of irregular migration in a more concerted way without necessarily coming in to violate more rights. Then again, 32%, we also found that 32% had stayed in the country for about 5 years or less than 5 years, 17% again 3 years, and 20% for almost a year. 32% had not been sentenced, or had not been sentenced. Rather, they were serving, awaiting their cases to continue. They were on remand, and then 19% of the respondents were serving 5-year sentences, while 10% of the respondents had been sentenced for less than 3 months. Again, that point alone showcases to you the lack of uniformity in terms of how, even for the migrants who end up in the criminal justice system, are handled. So that then you get, there is disparity. There are those who go in for 3 months. Again, you get 5 years or 1 year, depending again on the situation. But these were just the findings we found at that particular point. Further, migrants movement, because we were able to speak directly to the migrants, we also sought to understand what was either their push or pull factors, and what was the key driver of that particular movement. And we were able to identify and find that the pull factors were accorded for 49%, meaning majority of the migrants who came in, out of those who we interviewed, indicated that they were coming in because they came to Kenya to seek job opportunities or greener pastures. Again, for those who had left their countries because of other reasons, they had been pushed out of their countries because of other factors, either insecurity or even other factors that are detailed in the report, that particular population was 18%, while those who came to Kenya for family unification were 9%. Again, that again speaks to the fact that we have migrants who have stayed in Kenya, even though they are still irregular migrants, they've been able to form families here, and sometimes even when they are arrested and they're taken through the system and released and repatriated, they end up coming back to Kenya again to address, because they have the roots or they have the families that they have already planted in Kenya. And again, those who are on transit were 6%. Then next, 78% of the migrants in detention had been arrested by Kenya police. This was also very keen for us to just appreciate who is this first responder at the point of arrest. So we found 78% indicated that they had been arrested by the Kenya police. Again, 10% by private citizens. 4% of the respondents also stated they were arrested by either CID or immigration officers. Again, to notice that when you see the figure 78% also going high, it could also allude to the fact that we have the one border stop point working that is already going on in Kenya. So that model, again, can also speak volume about that. Then also we found that a lot of migrants in prisons were detained for being in the country without proper documentation. And in this we found 66% were those others who had other criminal charges, while 2% were detained for being outside the designated area. Again, that speaks to the element of the refugees and the asylum seekers who are either asked to stay in a certain specific designated area, and they end up moving from that. Again, 44% of the respondents alluded to the fact that it took them 48 hours before they were presented to a court of law. Again, while 25% say it took 2 days while they were in prison cells, and 35% the respondents said that they were taken to court with the stipulated time of 24 hours. This is a crucial area for us as human rights advocates or human rights practitioners, because then we have the 24-hour rule in Kenya, and what does it mean to access to justice, the principles of fair natural justice, among others. So we also needed to understand what is the situation, what is the dynamic when they are arrested. Again, if you look at deeper into the report, there are reasons given there, but also you will also find the experiences by the duty bearers, the police, and the different actors, the immigration officials, giving details as to why sometimes they have a problem and why sometimes they fail to abide by the 24-hour rule. But nevertheless, it's an area we found out as a challenge, and they need to improve on that. Then the next bit was the 74% of the migrants we interviewed were the opinion that they had not faced any discrimination based on their migrant status in prison. However, 26% of the migrants cited having faced some discrimination or some aspect of discrimination while in prison. Again, figures there indicating aspects of prevention from discrimination. What does it mean? Good report, but also there is room for improvement. And then in terms of going forward, migrants in detention facilities indicated that the procedure of making any complaints about a human rights violation was somehow easy, as far as the different options were given, and that representation was made by 50% of the total migrants who were interviewed. Again, that 6% revealed that making human rights violations complaints while in detention was difficult. So you can see the numbers. 50% said it was somehow easy, they felt there was a structure, but then on the other side, 36% said they couldn't. So just be very keen on the fact that the question on making a complaint, we reached out to the specific category of migrants who are within the prison facilities. Why? Because they were staying there for long, they are within the legal purview of the duty bearer, who is the Kenya Prison Services, and we needed to appreciate what they were going through and how they were being assisted. Then on the other side, we also made a finding of the challenges faced by the law enforcement officials or officers, which included the communication barriers when addressing matters or aspects of migrants in detention places or even at the point of arrest. Again, we also noted the congestion in the cells. This could be the police cells, this could also be the prisons, depending on the situation. Sometimes the inflows of the migrants becomes an issue that affects the police cells in terms of the population and so on. Then we also were able to find out the challenge of lack of specific facilities for migrants, and as such, there's a lot of mixing up of migrants with other criminal offenders. An issue, again, that someone could really ask, what else can we do? Do we have alternatives? Do we have options? And then on the other challenge we found was the cultural and dietary concerns of different migrants. I think these are challenges that different duty bearers, especially the police cells and even in the prisons facilities, were able to really indicate that sometimes the culture alone brings a lot of challenges, and they end up having to handle migrants who are sick. And again, that also has an impact on the work allocation, on even taking them to hospitals, and also the other aspect of finances that are required there. Again, then the last one was delays in the repatriation of migrants. This was a major challenge that was alluded to by all criminal justice actors. There is a lot of incoherence and lack of standardization of what is the procedure, and a lot of back and forth. You find a migrant comes into the system, they are arrested on day one, they stay a bit in the police cell, I don't know what consultations goes on, before you realize they are taken to the next level, produced in court, charged with the offense of being in the country illegally or illegal entry. From there is, of course, the sentencing that goes on. They are put in the different prison to serve their terms. After that, then the release process becomes a nightmare for a migrant. A nightmare in that they end up going back to the police station for being held up, clearance, as the immigration officials are trying to put in the badges or put in the different logistics and seek clarity from the different embassies, and so on and so forth. So before you realize, they are again serving their sentences at the police station. And after that, no one knows exactly what are the timelines, no one knows exactly how fast that process should be and who takes the responsibility at that particular point before they are repatriated. And the story goes on how the repatriation goes on from one point to another. There's a possibility you get a migrant who has probably been processed from either Langata Women's Prison to Nairobi, somewhere in one of the police stations, and how if they are going back, they're being taken back, repatriated back to their country, they are likely to go to different stopovers if then there is no flight direct. There's a way the police stations are able to work closely with the immigration officials to help in the repatriation process. But nevertheless, there is a lot of back and forth, and there was need for clarity on that process, the process itself, the resources allocation, the capacity, but also the delays that are necessary that end up causing more harm than good. So for us as human rights, we are very keen on that process, because if we do not then standardize, we make the work of our duty bearer, our police officers, immigration officials, and even the prison officers, we make their work difficult in terms of helping them to appreciate how they can help the government to deal with the issue of irregular migrants. But at the end of the day, the question we pose here is to ask us, do we have an alternative to this process? And I think that is why we are here today, to just speak to the fact that we would want to understand what are the different alternatives. But before I go there, allow me to now delve deeper into the situation of the children on the move, the forgotten, the vulnerable, and always overlooked. This is a population that at least we set out independently to check and identify what were the challenges. So we found, from the study, we found that there were 8,831 children in the different 130 children's home and statutory institutions that we were able to visit. Those were the numbers which we were given by the managers in terms of just compiling and understanding. But above all, one of the key conclusions we made from this study was that there is a possibility some of these children's homes, because we set out to also check with the private institutions, the children institutions that are within the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection, both Department of Children Services, but also, okay, sorry. Sorry. So can you hear me? Okay. So slow, Judge. This one is even it's slow in charge. Okay, so with regard to the children institutions, we found that 40%, most of them were holding above capacity. So we found 40% of the total capacity of the institution. So it was overwhelming in terms of the numbers. So the need for us then to just ask from the study the details in terms of which specific area. Is it the private children institutions, which you call charitable children institutions, or are we also speaking about the Children Welfare Society of Kenya institutions, and also the institutions which are directly within the Children's Department service? But we were also able to understand from the different managers that we interviewed, about 1% of the children in those institutions were migrants. These were children who were non-Kenyan, but we could not delve deeper into interviewing them for purposes of, number one, we had issues of the language barrier, but also the aspects of the trauma, just safeguarding the children from the trauma, and the need for us to have done very well in this area. So we were not able to speak to the children, but the managers who are in charge of these homes were able to speak in depth about their experiences with these children, a lot of which you will get from the report. So we learned, we were able also to make a finding about the processing of the children, general or the children, but also the migrant children into these facilities. Most of them come in as a way of referrals from either the children offices or the courts or the community-based organization. And sometimes they have what they call walk-ins from the Good Samaritans, or children just finding their way to some of these homes directly or otherwise. Then also we found that the children do not offer any information that assist the duty bearers or the managers of these private homes, and sometimes that again makes it very difficult for the managers to have proper records of details of these children and even rescue and help them out. I go to a very key area. That also was one of the objectives of this study, aspects of cost analysis. And this is where we were very keen on trying to come up with estimates of what is the cost of migrants' detention in Kenya. And I think from the video you have been able to see that the concern also of the magistrates, the concern of the prison officials, the concern of the different actors at that particular point is what does it mean? How much does it cost? Because at the end of the day, if the government is paying for it, trust me, the taxpayer is paying for it. And as such, we were able to use estimates which we got from the annual financial reports of the different ministries and departments. Again, just a caution here and a limitation of this study, we were not able to get specific amounts of money assigned to address issues of migrants, largely because the budgeting process is done generally, looking at the different undertakings of different ministry and different departments of the government. And as such, we worked with the 2% of the population that we suppose is migrants among the entire bit, and we use the 2% to try and approximate and come up with the figures there. So I will not delve into the figures so much after giving that, limitation, but I'll go deeper down there to the total approximated costs, where we stated that we approximated about 2 billion, or about 2 billion goes into processing or handling of migrants in detention places. That is, if you start looking at these figures from the point where the interaction of arresting a migrant commences, all the way to the investigations, presentation to court, the charging, the prosecution, the sentencing, moving from one point to another, then the entire repartition process. So we came up with that estimate, and the details of that again are found in the report. So we estimated in Kenya, the Kenyan government approximately uses Kenya shillings 2 billion annually to process migrants through the criminal justice system, and afterwards repatriate them to their countries of origin. A third of the migrants are migration-related offenses, such as overstayed visas, lack of proper travel documentation, lack of work permits, but above all, the aspects of what they call illegal entry was the major thing that, of course, is informed by some of these factors here. So from the cost analysis, this means about 593, that is trillion or what, is a budgeted cost ripe for savings. So in other words, what we are saying is, these amounts, whatever cost that goes into addressing aspects of migrants in detention places, can be a cost that can be saved to address different aspects of this country, including the Agenda 4, among others. So we also spoke about the need for deprioritizing the detention of migrants who have no criminal records, but rather looking at the different options. In terms of the human factor, you can't hear me? This better. In terms of human factor cost, we were also able to identify that the communication we had with regards to the costing, we depended so much on the annual reports. So we were not able to come down and ask, for instance, a police officer, how much does it cost you? And this is the human factor perspective. One case could be different from another. There is a case that can take 10 days to address the issues of repatriation. Another will take 2 months. Another will take 2 weeks or even 7 days. So we were not able to really come down to address the human factor cost and the different aspects of the costing that come in by virtue of the HR and so on. But nevertheless, from a human rights perspective, we are of the view that government should adopt a human rights-based approach, a perspective that will help us to look for alternatives to detention of migrants as a way of, one, helping the government to limit unnecessary liabilities that can emanate by virtue of human rights violations of migrants in our detention places and so on. Then also we spoke about the risk of vulnerable migrants, such as victims of trafficking, being criminalized. Our Counter-Trafficking in Persons Act is very clear on the need for us as duty bearers to help manage the victim of trafficking in the right way, accord them assistance once you have identified them properly. But if we continue having the overwhelming detention of migrants without even proper identification of whether they are victims of trafficking or otherwise, then we run the risk of violating the same law that we have put in place under the Counter-Trafficking in Persons Act of 2010. Then also we advocate for the implementation of national referral mechanism. These are guidelines that have been developed by the Counter-Trafficking in Person Secretariat that are very crucial for all duty bearers to help identify the victims of trafficking and support them appropriately. As I finish the presentation, I would like to delve into the recommendations and some of the recommendations that the report has been able to make and the findings that were informed by the findings of this study is the need for establishment of a standardized minimum safeguards compliant with the international human rights law that protect and guide the treatment of all migrants in the country, including the irregular migrants. Again, this is just a call and a reiteration that there is need for the government to fulfill her obligation with regard to the different UN human rights conventions of upholding human rights for all, including the migrants. There is need for training and capacity building for duty bearers. A number of them are stated there. These are the frontline duty bearers in our criminal justice sector, but also going deeper into the Federation of Kenya Employers, but deeper also addressing aspects of the civil society organization. Why for this? Because all of them have a role in addressing aspects of migrants and helping us to address the challenge of irregular migration without necessarily just using the detention as a last option. There is a way out. So the third recommendation there is the need for development of alternative to detention guidelines. This will help us to provide alternative dispute mechanism, preferably address the challenges that occur with regard to the costing and the unstandardized practices on the criminal justice process or in handling a migrant and so on. So we need to have the guidelines for alternative to detention of migrants. Then we also need to really speak largely and support the individualized case management as guided by the National Referral Mechanism guidelines. Again, these NRM guidelines are guidelines which have been adopted by the government of Kenya by virtue of establishing the Counter-Trafficking in Persons Advisory Committee and the Secretariat, and the need for the different duty bearers to just appreciate the content of the NRM and take up these guidelines. They mean well. They have a very in-depth process of identifying a migrant. They help you identify if this person is a victim of trafficking or otherwise, and accordingly give you details on how to address that, to support the victim of trafficking, who are the different stakeholders and service providers, and where should you call in case you have a challenge. Then we need to review and standardize communication channels and accountability. This will largely, again, influence the criminal justice processes with regard to how we handle migrants' cases and also the different advice that we will be giving on individualized cases as they come in. And then we have specific recommendations to the different stakeholders. This is where then accountability starts. To the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, we are required from the findings of the report, one of the key recommendations is for us to regularly conduct human rights audit of places of detention. The need for us to keep tab, because if we don't then do that, then we will not be able to support the other stakeholders, the government and the civil society organization, to appreciate what is the problem, what is the challenge, and give recommendation. So to the actors in the criminal justice system, they need to be more sensitized on the different documents issued to them, but also on the issues of rights-based approach in migration governance. Again, the public needs also to be sensitized on human rights of migrants and safe migration practices. Why so? Because when migrants move irregularly, they stay with the communities. If the communities are not aware on how to sensitize them and to tell them what to do, then we will not even have them regularize their stay or follow the different laws that are set out. Then to the Department of Immigration, which is very crucial to this process, they need to set up strategic holding areas for the migrants pending their repatriation, because the key challenge of holding them in the police station seems to go against the current practice of the criminal justice system. But nevertheless, there is need for proper documentation and screening for migrants' children before being referred to government children's home or any other facility. A lot of data is lost if we are not able to capture the children of the move well. Then the Immigration Department needs to liaise with the Treasury for more funding and also to support immediate repatriation of migrants there, and also to help them come up with a clear policy that will speak to the guidelines that will help us to have alternatives to migrants' detention, among others. Then again, to the next duty bearer, the National Police Service. The war and effort on human trafficking and smuggling of migrants should be directed to the cartels and traffickers benefiting from the business. The Kenyan law, Counter-Trafficking in Persons Act, is very clear. We seek to nab the person behind this cartel, but oftentimes in our study, we found horrible situation where the traffickers, alleged traffickers, were let out of the police station or cells, while the persons who had been trafficked were left within the holding places or the holding cells. Again, it's an issue of supporting the actors to understand what is the dynamic, what are the elements of human trafficking, and who is supposed to be. That driver, they look very innocent. They are the ones who are transporting these migrants from point A, from point A to B. They look very innocent, they have the cash. They can buy their way out. Unfortunately, once you lose the driver, you lose one connection or one point that can help us clarify the trafficking investigation. So you make it difficult for the investigator to come in and help you appreciate what case you are dealing with and whether they are victims of trafficking or otherwise. Then there is need for creation of police units specialized in handling of migrants and human trafficking. I want to say that this is this has been done within the DCI, and we are glad with the cooperation we are seeing from the anti-human trafficking unit, the DCI, but also the child protection unit within the DCI. So the need for resources and allocation of different needs that require to strengthen these bodies and to help them apply the national referral mechanism guidelines. Then also we need to have the police station on major entry routes, having at least one officer who is trained in sign language or who can communicate with the hearing impaired or those migrants who have disabilities. This also was one of the key challenges that we came across, and most people said, I wish we could even listen and hear their case. Maybe listening to the migrants would help us appreciate what sort of help or assistance they need. Then the police stations, which are also on the major entry highways, should be allocated and given a special kitty to cater for the cost of repatriation. I think also these are dynamics that we have seen, that sometimes the police stations, which are the border posts, are then given the burden of repatriation indirectly or directly. So the need for that particular issue to be addressed, and if they need for them to remain the way they are in terms of how they do the repatriation, then allocation of resources should be done. Then the next one is the immediate repatriation of migrants who are in the country unlawfully. That way, we are able to reduce the financial burden that the taxpayer undergoes with respect to putting them in prison, serving for 3 months, 6 months, and onward. Then we need to expedite the trafficking cases and any other cases where children are witnesses. This is because we need to help the children give their story when it is still fresh. And that is part of also a requirement within our Children's Act, the need to have the children give their witnessing, give their testimony or whatever they need to do in the court process, and off they go. They are not supposed to be in the court process. Children belong to the school or to other services, but not necessarily the criminal justice system. Then to the Kenya prison services, each prison facility should have a sign language interpreter stationed to cater for the needs of those who have hearing impairment, but also other needs of disability, but also the need to help us train our prison officials on how to identify cases of trafficking and help them also to identify how they can support the different migrants or the different victims of trafficking to seek services or to seek assistance when need arises. And I think this is where the aspect of the embassies, and I'm happy that we have embassy representation here, and even for those who gave their apologies, we are thankful. We shall follow up with the individual embassies that requested that we follow with them directly. So the need for us also to appreciate that the embassies here have a role to play, and especially when it comes to availing this migrant who has been detained, that right to connect with their relative, that right to communicate with their relatives where they are, and where they need some help, if it's a fine that has been given or otherwise, or when they need, in fact, in terms of medical assistance, the embassy comes in handy, just to request that also there's need for the embassies to work closer with these agencies and support us, even as we lobby and advocate for alternative to detention of migrants. And then again, the issues of course, resources comes in. And the next level due to bearer is the Department of Children's Services, where we said there's need for the children officers also to be trained more on how to address aspects of child trafficking and also aspects of migrants' rights, and how they can come up with the deliberate measures of partnering with the private children facilities to help us map out the needs of the children of the move who are held in some of these facilities. And again, issues of allocation of adequate resources to the ministry to develop different measures of addressing trafficking of child migrants, and so on. And then to the Ministry of Interior, which of course is the umbrella body with regard to our security. The need for us to look at the issues of temporary working permits or work permits, which can be availed to the migrants who wish to engage or to regularize their stay and engage in genuine business, and also those who have unique expertise that is rare locally. They need also to regularize seasonal labor permits, especially with the neighboring countries, among others. So if you look at the report, you'll also realize the report also alludes to different aspects that, again, needs to be taken in. And then in conclusion, I would want to leave us with a parting shot that as long as we look on migration as a problem or as something we are here to solve, then we are not going anywhere. However, if we are going to look at migration as a human reality that is as old as humankind, then we will have to appreciate that migration has always been a humankind oldest poverty reduction strategy. Therefore, as citizens, as duty bearers, we have to find a way to manage it. Those are the words of IOM DG William Lacey Swing, a bit rephrased. Thank you so much. So I think at this point, we will allow a bit of interjection, and then we can commence on. We have the microphone going on. Feel free to give any input. After the discussion, we'll go then into launching the report, and then we can have a video briefing at some point. Any questions?
Thank you, Dr. Linda.
Thank you very much for the presentation. It was very interesting, and I have one question regarding the budgeting. How useful do you think the government will take into account the budgeting, the cost that people they are giving, to help them do their planning for, responding to migrants in detention? Because I feel like these prisons would benefit more if they know they have the budget line to support those migrants who are actually in prison, and at least be able to repatriate them in the right way. So I'm just wondering how useful this report is for the government, especially the budget government. And then the second question, you didn't present it, but I saw it in the report. You said that in the report there are Tanzanians and Ugandans as well identified. And I wonder how the EAC comes in, because we have a single control law. How will that actually resolve the problems of those who are migrating irregularly or without documentation? Thank you.
Thank you. So as we get the next lot, I can answer those two as you prepare for the next. So just maybe to go into Dr. Linda's question, will the budgeting presentation in the report and the proposal, how will it inform the government budgeting process? I would want to state that as a National Commission, we are very keen on at least asking the government and the different duty bearers to look at that chapter and start asking themselves, what amount of money goes into addressing cases of migrants? Because once they do that internally, then they will be able then to appreciate whether that cost is ripe for saving and whether the alternative to detention is the option to go. But beyond that, to just appreciate that, for instance, at the police and the immigration officials, you'd want them to look at that figure and ask themselves, is it time for us to put in more resources, maybe to come up with alternative dispute resolution process, or is it time for us then to now start properly documenting the costing that goes into detention of migrants? So I think from our end, we have posed to the different duty bearers that has been listed there a food for thought for them to think through and take up this and build up from where we have left. Because initially, nobody was looking budgeting from a point or perspective of detention of migrants. We have posed the question and the challenge. So it's up to the different ministries and the departments to take up. But nevertheless, should there be need for support from the National Commission, again, we are open for that. Thank you. And then on the next bit that you have raised, how are we going to address the issues of the EAC, the East Africa Community the free movement and the movement of migrants who come in, and some of them lack proper documentation or even they don't report. Again, that is an area we are hoping we can streamline as we go on, but again with the leadership of immigration officials, because then this is an issue that falls within the ministry that deals with the EAC aspects, and the different consulate, the MFA, and so on. So I think, again, a challenge we are posing and food for thought for the different actors. How do we pick up? What must we do in our respective offices, build up from this study, and put in mechanism? All we are seeking as a National Commission is to help you as duty bearer to stop exposing the country we call Kenya to unnecessary human rights violations that are likely to get us in trouble, because we have signed into various human rights conventions. Thank you so much. Next.
Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to appreciate the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights to invite us on this important meeting, because we have a role to play. And I have a comment and two questions. The first one is, I just one of the officers in the embassy that in charge of this migration issue. So I know the field and the issues very well. So my stay in Nairobi, I've come across that prisoners in Kenyan prison, they have a mandate, they have the, most of the prisoners, they have the kind of responsibility to do the daily laboring while they are serving in the prison. So at least they are working daily from 8 to 9 hours. So my question is, have you come across with this issue, with this, according to example of the study, and how to look into this activity according to the international labor law? Because they are subject to the daily laborers, they have to do something while they are serving the country. And the other one is, like, there is a state out of this business, they need to stay while they are waiting for their departure. So these days, the conditions are not very good. There is no place to sleep. There is no mattress. They have to just sit on the floor. There is no adequate washrooms. And these cells are very small and very confined as the number of the prisoners or the migrants. So due to this challenge, they have, most of them, they face like health problems while they're staying in this very confined small rooms. So how did you evaluate this situation from the human rights perspective? And as you mentioned on your study, the other challenge is the delay for the repatriation. We understand that there is, of course, a logistic problem. But still, this is a pressing issue from our side. Unfortunately, most of the migrants are children who is the victims of these human traffickers. For your information, this victim of human traffickers, they are paying for the traffickers on average like $6,000 per person. So what they do is they just deceived by them from the outset from Ethiopia. They are told that they are going to South Africa. Of course, when you study, you have just 6% of them are only for transit. But from our side, most of them, even more than half of them, they are looking for heading to South Africa for this economic migrants. So I think as a country we need to cooperate, we need to just work together to avoid this. We can't avoid avoid, of course, but we need to minimize, at least to seal these human traffickers. And at the last, you have indicated that most of them, when they even face the law, they have paid something and they get out of there. The victims are while they're serving for long. So I think we need to interrogate these things to prevent and to combat this human trafficking. I think I have only this one. If there is any chance, I will come across it again.
Thank you. Allow me to delve into that. Thank you. Thank you, sir, for the questions and also the input that is very crucial. I agree, you have spoken about the rehabilitation processes that is offered by the Kenya Prison Services. And that on a daily basis, there is a routine where the prisoners or the arrested persons who are in the remand are supposed to engage in on a daily basis. I think that's a routine that is intended to help in rehabilitation of the persons therein. And there is also need for us to appreciate that different holding facilities, that is the prisons, depending on its location, again, they have different activities that the detained persons are involved in and engaged in. So again, I think that's an issue. Did we go into deeper details on how they engage? Largely within the prisons, one of the findings you will get in the report, we found the general treatment of all detained persons as equal. The only separation we had, or the only what we call positive discrimination we had, is where, for instance, a detained person has either disability or is sickly or has some special needs. That is the only time you realize that most of them are not engaged in other services. But nevertheless, I know our representative from the prison also will allude to the fact that depending on the term of the sentences, the prisons have different treatment. There are times where even when you are serving a short sentence, probably you are not put in any, you are not engaged in some of those daily routines. But again, that is dependent. Yes, we found there is an equal treatment of the different migrants within the prison, within the Kenya Prison Services. The other condition that you have spoken about, the question is the conditions in the police cells, and the fact that it's unfortunate that due to the repatriation process and the lack of standardization and clarity on who does what and the timelines therein, there is a high chance that we have migrants who end up in the police stations, they serve there, and they have no mattresses. I think that is a true picture that we made a finding, and it is alluded to in the report. And part of it is because the police cells initially are not supposed to be long-term detention facilities or custody facilities. The police officer in charge of the station will only speak to the fact that once they arrest a person, their mandate is to safeguard and to secure that person, because that person then becomes the property of the Kenyan government, and the only safe place that is available at that particular point is the police cell. So unfortunately, yes, they don't have the blankets, they don't have the mattresses, but it's also an issue that I think has kept on being raised as a concern for human rights. So it's unfortunate that when a migrant who has served his or her due diligence in the criminal justice and has gone to the process and has been sentenced and finished his serving, coming back to then start reserving the sentence again in a police cell, that again is a huge violation of human rights. And also noting the situation there, you put the officer in charge of that station at risk of violating human rights. You also expose the government of the day to unnecessary liabilities for violating the rights of that migrant. Should that case be brought up, I can assure you that it's likely to bring in a lot of discourse on what human rights violations and so on. But about the violations that we were able to make a finding on, in the report is detailed about the different violations. The other concern you have raised is the issue of some migrants who move from Ethiopia coming into Kenya. A number of them could be possible cases of human trafficking. And again, the need for all of us to put in our heads to work together and to adopt what the Global Compact on Migration speaks about, whole government, whole society approach. In a nutshell, that is what we call human rights-based approach. The need for all the key stakeholders, the governments, the ministries, the embassies, the different ministries, the Ministry of ESC, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Interior, of course, taking leadership, the National Commission, and all these other actors just coming in and saying, I think we have a challenge. And migration has a way, it does, on one side, contribute to our development, but if not handled well, it can also disrupt the development of this country. And hence the need for us to understand development and respect for human rights go hand in hand. So again, it's an opportunity, and I'm happy you came. We also had apologies from other embassies. Again, the embassies who have requested us to follow up with them directly. We appreciate that this conversation is going to go higher, and also we are going to continue working closely with the National Coordination Mechanism, which is housed within the Ministry of Interior, specifically Directorate of Immigration, that has really taken leadership in coordinating migration conversation, migration governance conversation in this country. Thank you so much.
Thanks for this opportunity. My name is Ken from People. I just wanted to look at this topic. It's a very controversial topic from the other way around. And you as human rights defenders, are you playing the role of prevention so that before it happens, we have institutions like AU. Right now we have crisis in Ethiopia, we have crisis in Uganda, still in Zimbabwe and all that. Are you pushing institutions like AU and UN before the crisis happens? Because the challenge is this. Let's take those ones, immigrants living, let's say living in Syria or Libya and all that, going to a country like Germany or France, which are very liberal, and they carry with them their traditions. And once they get there, there's always a clash. There's a clash of culture. Therefore, it becomes you come with your culture, which you have to dress in a certain way. The locals don't have to dress in a certain way. Also, there's the economical impact. Some of the migrants don't come with the right skills, and therefore society takes them as a burden. And politicians, you've seen the way Trump uses them. They come as a burden because they don't have the skills. So, in the interest of preventing, because most of the immigrants are actually economical immigrants, and these things occur because of corruption, poor governance, and all that. So it's the human right fraternity taking up. Before it happens, we are able to control it. Use the institutions like AU, using institutions like UN and all that, to push these governance to take up the East African community. Now there's silence when there's violence in Uganda and all that. The EU has not taken its position on Ethiopia. Thank you.
Is there any other question?
Thank you. Thank you, sir, for the question. Very, very informative. On the question on whether the National Commission on Human Rights is taking in any intervention with regard to prevention of irregular migration, I think I would want to attest to the fact that the last 3 years or so, the National Commission, with the support of GIZ BMM, Better Migration Management Program, has been on the forefront. One, creating awareness on the rights of migrants, the host communities, and subsequent responsibilities that emanate from there. But beyond creating awareness to the public, we have also internalized these trainings to the human rights and to the different duty bearers, that is using the referral partners and networks across about 15 counties. And this is with the intention of ensuring that all of us are able to communicate effectively on what does it mean to have migration and human rights linkage, and what is the role of each stakeholder in safeguarding the rights of migrants. I would want to speak to the fact that when we look at the migrants, the question that then tends to come in is they versus us. But then we forget, if today I open the chapter 4 of the Constitution, it does speak comprehensively about human rights for all. The Constitution, the language alone will tell you that we speak about the rights of all, whether you are a citizen, a resident, or a migrant. And that is the conversation we should be having, and ask ourselves, are we as a nation doing the best we can to respect, uphold human rights, and foster development and address the root causes? So the human rights-based approach helps us in discussing migration governance by taking us down to what are the root causes. Is it unemployment? Is it issues of the conflict, the crisis? Is it the issues of the lack of proper coordination of the different mechanisms, implementation of either the laws that are existing, and even the use of the different platforms that have been created, either within the AU or the UN systems, to help us promote what we call good governance, to help us address issues of human rights, the respect thereon, and also foster what we are calling sustainable development. One thing I would want to say is, yes, we have a role as a commission. Public awareness has been very key. Advocacy dialogues with the targeted duty bearers has been going on. But beyond that, we have also been part of the voice that has been supporting the government of Kenya, and also the different member states within Africa and even globally, during the process of negotiating what we call the Global Compact on Migration. This is a very crucial document that has a basis on what was going on within the migration dynamics. The fact that the irregular migrants from Africa were moving to these other countries, and the whole action that we were seeing in the televised and all manner of things, and the fact that whether that migrant belongs to country A, B, or C, they are still human beings, their right needs to be protected. The question that we are here to pose is, how do we support each other? How do we support the government of Kenya to at least put in mechanism to forestall the reality of either a crisis or even the violations of the migrants' rights, and which subsequently then comes into violation of the rights of the host community, among others. So the need for us to have that balancing act and to act on it. And just to reiterate that part of the work we do as a commission is also monitoring government compliance with respect to her obligation at the regional level and international level, and what commitments have been put in place to respect and to respect the rights of all in this particular documentation and so on. So yes, we are doing something. Are we there yet as a country? Not yet. As a region, are we there? The National Coordination Mechanism has been holding dialogues with the IGAD, equivalent platforms and so on, again to support the voices. And the different ministries, the Ministry of EAC, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Interior, again doing what they can at their different levels to support the government of Kenya to strengthen, and even the Ministry of Labor, to strengthen the coordination and address the root causes of irregular migration in Kenya. That's all I would say. I would just want to say that there are processes which are ongoing. Some of them we are part of them, some of them we are at the forefront in terms of not hesitating to give our human rights opinion and advisory on how best we can safeguard against violating the rights of migrants. That's the much I would say. And as a parting shot again, we have a petition up there. Look at migration not as a problem to solve, but as an opportunity for development. And if you look at the SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, and also the Vision 2030, all these development agenda, they have a way that they are speaking, and the need for all of us to work closely to promote what we are calling a safe, orderly, and regular migration across the world. Thank you so much. I want to invite our next guest to come in here as we proceed for the launch. We have Anne-Marie, Director, Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. Madam Silke, please come in. Commissioner for us. Sir, please come in. Dr. Likaka. Ruth, proceed up here. Michelle, please proceed here. We just want to have a bit of representative as we launch our report today. National Police Service, colleague. Mr. Colleague, here. Charles Owino, sir. Dr. Linda, can you join us? Thank you. We just want to have a bit of representative that will help us meet in and just proceed with this. Please don't leave. We still have a lot to do. And also we have to take Thank you.
Is it possible to do it, since you are so wide, we do it in sections? Eh? Okay. The human rights, we start with the main culprits, the police, then we go... It's no, no. Yeah, three. Yeah. Okay, fine. Yeah. So the others would just move aside, then the MC would call the relevant.
Too light.
Eh?
Just complicated. It's not too light.
For the newspaper.
It's a bit too wide. It's too wide.
Yeah, just the.
Okay, so why don't we just cut? According to your list, just
Yeah,
cut.
you call the relevant bodies, and the human rights, you remain there, and you hand over.
Okay.
Huh? Yeah. So yeah.
We have prisons.
Yeah, so at the center.
But the center, like where these three are standing.
Yeah. So the human rights and the police, then. Okay, give out your, hand him over the book. Just give out the mic and hand him the book. Yeah, yeah. Right. Maybe you talk and see if it praises you.
This is what you want. All right.
Okay.
He's not interested anymore.
I know.
No, I'm interested. Let's go to the next one. The next one. Okay. So who's handing over? Who's receiving?
Just something up one position for some.
Thank you so much. Survey report of the status of migrants in places of detention in Kenya. We've seen the concerns raised by Still morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. May I first of all take this opportunity to thank the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights together with their partners, the European Union, the German Corporation, GIZ, British Council, among others, including UNODC. For this good report, the survey report on the status of migrants in places of detention in Kenya. It has very good recommendations, and more so based on the basic human rights for the immigrants that may find themselves in our country. But it is important to note that as police, we are simply officers of the law. Our main duty is to enforce laws and regulations as stipulated in the books. And therefore, I would request the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights to move further on this particular report and get out ways in which maybe we can come up with legislation that would improve on the rights of these individuals, especially the immigrants that find themselves brought over by, let's say, brokers or traffickers, majorly. For the traffickers, I believe that we would still remain strict to them and ensure that they serve sentences or pay very heavy fines. But for the immigrants, maybe it would be important that we can come up with legislation that would fasten maybe immediate or quick deportation. But as the law stands today, our hands are tied. We still have to follow the regulation as it is. But I think with recommendations which have been made, it will be better if you can liaise with other partners and liaise with the institutions responsible for coming up with legislations to ensure that this is taken up. It should not be a PR exercise. It should be taken up to a better stage or another level that would be able to help these situations, because we also want to ease or to save the economy of the country. And maybe save for asylum seekers, those are special cases where in cases of war, you may not necessarily push somebody back to a place where you think he may lose his life or may get detained. And those regulations are provided for. Otherwise, this is a very good survey report. We encourage you to continue. And as a national commission that works on behalf of government, especially on human rights, I think we are happy that so far, since the institution was started, we have made very good steps in management of basic human rights. All of us, at every particular time, we strive for our rights to be respected. Thank you so much, and we wish you the best of luck. Unless these guys of the press have a question. I know you like asking questions, but strictly on this, not on any other matter. Any other matter we will meet where we always meet. Do you have a question related to this? Yes.
You talked of the issue of resources. I don't know how much it's draining the police force, and also there's always the challenge of language barriers. If you arrest most of the immigrants and all that, how are you now capable? You see guys from Ethiopia where.
Let me start with the issue of resources. Resources are always limited. You will never get enough resources. So we do with the little resources that we have. Though always there's a provision for increasing the resources. For example, if the detention facility, like a police station, is small at the point of entry, then the only thing is that maybe with time we ensure that we request government to give us more money to enlarge those facilities. But always resources are limited, and we always do with whatever that is available. The other question was?
The challenge on
language. Language, we have two issues. The advantage is that most of these people are persons, 70% are individuals that are across the borders. And most of the times, you find that the communities across borders are almost the same. You find if it is Somali, we have Kenya Somali, we have Somali, and we also have Boranas from Ethiopia and this side. So many a times the issue of communication is not a very big barrier. But we have also trained more, especially sign languages. We are now having a number of security officers who have been trained on sign languages, and we hope to get more.
The highest number of immigrants, the number of arrests are from Ethiopia, and we have outside in terms of statistics.
I think the department dealing with either immigration or refugees would be able to give you a better answer on that. Thank you.
declare the meeting closed, save for the snacks that we have provided, but also support, request the media. For those who may want to have individualized interviews, we have a team that is represented here. National Police Service, Commissioner for Us, Kenya National Commission Human Rights, NCM representative, Counter Trafficking in Person Secretariat, among others. Kenya Prisons. Okay, so what we'll do, we will see if we are able to have a one-on-one interview briefly. After that, then we can proceed and close our meeting. We had booked it for half day. And for our online viewers, just to also follow through with them and find out if there are any questions, we shall respond to them directly. Thank you so much for the support. For the team here, we have breakfast there served. Feel free to indulge after this. And with that, allow us to stand up for a word of prayer. It is at this point that we recognize what our director, Anne Okutoi from the National Commission on Human Rights said. She was able to thank the different development partners, the EU, through the GIZ BMM project, and the fact that they have been able to support this engagement, as evident with the banners, but also the actual work. And just to reiterate that what Bonawino has alluded to, that as a commission, we are keen on not just handling this process as a PR, but moving beyond to actualize some of the different guidelines that we already have, creating the laws, but also strengthening implementation of the Counter Trafficking in Persons Act 2010, which gives us a leeway to start off this journey of discussing alternatives to detention of migrants. Thank you so much. Let's pray. Everlasting Father, we want to thank you because of this day. Thank you, Lord. You have been with us since we started this meeting. You have seen us through. You have provided us with guidance and wisdom. We thank you, Lord, that there are different commitments that have been said. And also, the report alone speaks to the recommendations that as a country, as a nation, we need to adopt, and we need to come in and find ways of ensuring that migration works for us to help us foster sustainable development. And of course, stop human rights violation. Father, we thank you that you give us strength, you give us wisdom as we continue engaging in different platforms. You are going to lead us into doing what is right, into guiding this nation and enacting different laws and guidelines that are needed to support this work. After all is said and done, Lord, we'll have done your work. We thank you, we honor you. For those who came, we thank you for guiding them and giving them journey mercies. And even for those who are in the online platform, we thank you for their families and for them for taking time to follow us through and to listen to the discussion herein. I pray that every one of us will take home something and will take something to our different offices and start actualizing some of these mechanisms. It's all we need is a change of behavior, change of attitude, but above all, we need to put in place structures and laws that will help us as a nation. We thank you, we honor you. Glory to you, O God. As we end this meeting, we end with you. In the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, do we pray, trust, and believe. Amen. Thank you so much.
Our border here is porous. We get cases of immigrants. They are headed to maybe big towns like Nairobi and also beyond this country. We have been detecting them, and whenever we get to them, we arrest them. We arraign them in court. They are charged. Later, they are repatriated back to their country.
Under our Kenyan law, anyone who is unlawfully present in Kenya will be charged as being unlawfully present in Kenya. If you look at that charge, the way it is framed, it leaves very little for interpretation. You only need to prove that this person has no legal documentation, and that is that. So the penalty for being unlawfully present in Kenya is a fine of up to 500,000 or imprisonment for up to 3 years.
The core mandate of prisons department is rehabilitation so that they can be reintegrated back to the society. We don't have that aspect of rehabilitating aliens.
During our interactions with them and with prisons, it has come out very clearly that the prison has no curriculum to deal with them. They are not there to be corrected, they are not there to be punished. I think it's one of those lacunas in law that we have. We never contemplated this.
محمد على القناة اللي لا سوماليان كشقيسنا دوبلان كيما waxaan u socday diif waa soo dhum waxaan soo galay xagga xuduudka Kenya soo galay Darfur meel laana laga qabtay anagoo shan qof ah Kenya sabab jiduf
It's unfortunate at times that the person who ends up in police custody so that we charge that person. It's just a victim. The person whom we should have gone for is this person bringing these people. Because we believe that there are people who are trafficking these people. And those are the ones we are looking for. Among those people who are coming also here, they're also looking for employment. We have had instances whereby the person who has employed them refuses to pay, and then he calls the police. That is an alien here. It's so unfortunate.
We don't get a chance to talk to these people, right? We only meet them in court when they plead. So if you sat in court, perhaps you would see what I see and feel what I feel. I do not look at them as criminals per se. Sometimes you find the people charged are women and children. Where do you put these minors? In terms of people we send to prison, then they account for more than 70%. Because when they are arrested, they are usually arrested as a group. So you might find one file having 50 people, all being charged with being unlawfully present in Kenya.
Ani namu yo na gadi sanille Ethiopia taimal Ethiopia kabadden duf arumadan taim sun Kenya arumad dalalam yo aruma gali adanle taim sun esa kabadde galan hagan order giya dufelle yadur hagan aga chi dufelle yadur aningala yo gali adanle garubun gala yo jaddele wan ni rabbi nage ninu mo jaddadu bakam.
In Wajir prison, we have 152 aliens in our prison. This is an open prison. The capacity is 200. The health is upon the government, feeding these aliens is upon the government. It comes from taxpayers' money.
Confronted with these challenges, state actors have come together and decided to confront the challenge of migrants in this county. The judiciary has used its discretion to bring down the fines, sometimes to 30, 50,000 and 30 days in prison, to bring it down as much as possible so that these people can be repatriated back to their country as soon as possible.
It wasn't serving any purpose at all to give a fine of 300,000, 400,000 and a maximum sentence of 1 year, because these guys would not pay the fine anyway. We found that actually what we thought was radical wasn't radical at all, because the other departments had also been thinking about it. Now this was being felt by the other state actors. I will pose it as questions I usually ask myself. What's the cost to the state? What's the cost to even morality?
Can we have other ways of handling aliens instead of committing them into the prison?
Is this how we would want our people to be treated if our situation got into the situation Somalia is in or Ethiopia is in? Let's ask them, is there something else we can do for you as human beings so that your rights are respected?